I just want to take a minute real fast to acknowledge Hurricane Helene and everyone affected by it. Obviously, living in Charlotte and hearing about all the devastation that took place in all the Carolinas, just want them to understand that they are in our thoughts and our prayers. And I know there's already been a message from the Hornets organization sent out to everybody, and I know that our ownership group is trying to help financially in the relief efforts. And so just everyone affected by it, not only the Carolinas, but all the surrounding areas. The videos are pretty devastating, and it's a tragic situation. And, you know, having a family of myself and knowing what you have to go through when you lose your home and power and all those things, it's really tough. So praying for them, and I know that as a community, we will all kind of band together to help them get through it.
Coach, you talk about the team rallying together. What does it mean to you to see the organization rallying together in such a time of need? Yeah,
it's what excited me about coming here to work for the Hornets, to be honest. I know the leadership that is in place here, they care about people, and they care about being the premier sports franchise, and they understand what that looks like and what it's going to take to actually do that from a resources standpoint financially, but also the human capital that goes into it and getting the right people in place. And so I've noticed that this organization, this community is all about just banding together and like figuring it out together. We're in the process of going through arena renovations, and some of our spaces are being constructed and moved around. And even today for Media Day, I don't know how it was for everybody here, but you got to move down some different hallways and stuff. And we figure it out. And, we're actually just all focused on the bigger picture that we're just glad to be in the NBA.
Coach, can you just talk about your excitement now starting your first training camp with the Charlotte Hornets and how important these next few days are really going to be to you and this team?
Yeah, well, there's a great buzz around the team, no pun intended, but I feel it, and I feel the energy. And it really started from day one when I was hired. And I would say the whole offseason, the players have been bought in. And one of the biggest messages that we're just trying to hammer home as a staff is consistency. Consistency of habits, consistency of competitiveness, consistency of togetherness. And all of those attributes are going to help us get through the whole season. And so it's been going on in the offseason. We'll have to take it up to another level come training camp time. But I think all the guys are really excited to hop on that bus and head to Durham and get going with training camp.
You mentioned training camp. How does Mark's injury affect you guys the first couple of weeks here? You try to just figure out what you're going to do rotation-wise, stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah, unfortunate what happened to Mark, because he's one of the guys during the summer that just showed a newfound commitment and love and joy for the game as he was battling back, I think, from his back injury. And knowing that he couldn't even play in the summer league games, it was important for him to follow the plan that was in place for him by our performance team, and coming to Sacramento and being around the team and learning the new terminology. And there's just such, like I said, a love and a care for the game. So it's unfortunate to see him have to go down with this minor injury, I would say, but we'll reevaluate in a couple weeks. And I know that he's resilient, and he's shown it to all of us, and he's going to continue to do that. And when he's ready to come back after evaluation, we'll figure it out, and we'll be really happy to have him.
And you've been around LaMelo for obviously a few months now. Just what have you, I guess, learned most about him, and what do you expect from him this season, just as an individual player? I mean, Jeff mentioned defense can be something. You guys, I guess, look a little more to him this year. What do you want to see from him this year as a next year player?
LaMelo plays with such great joy, I would say. And now what we want to see from him is that he has competitive joy, and understanding what are the competitive attributes that he needs to bring on a night in, night out basis, a day in and day out basis, and building those proper habits, because he has this infectious personality when he comes into a building where he brings everybody together. Even the way he plays the game of basketball, he brings everybody together with his playmaking. And so now we just have to make sure that those efforts competitively are happening defensively and offensively on a night out and night out basis, night in, night out.
Charles, when it came down to your off season, you're in the playoffs, you're in the finals, you go right from the finals to summer league, and now you're into training camp with kind of the guys over the summer. Is there a point where it stops feeling like you're drinking through a fire hose and you can compartmentalize it a little bit? And I guess, how do you take that and turn it into progress, and what do you see as progress for this season?
Yeah. No, the fire hose is still going. We had our first team meeting today, and you're trying to figure that out. And you got to sit down with the PR team to make sure you're prepared properly for a media day, and you want to address the team and pictures and all that stuff. But the exciting part about it is like I get to do these things finally as the head coach, and I get to do it as the head coach of the Hornets, which is really exciting. And that's where I'm just so thankful and appreciative for the people around me that are helping me get through this time. I could not do it all by myself right now. My staff has been phenomenal. Taking the leads on a lot of the organizational things or the day-to-day building relationships with players and implementing our system. And so I'm just super grateful for my staff. I think Jeff and his group have been phenomenal. Even like Shelly and her team, like learning about the business side of things and how they've kind of helped the basketball side of things has been phenomenal. So there's just players in every group so far that are helping me get through this fire hydrant experience. But progress for our team, we are focused on, like I've said before, building consistent habits. And player development is going to be a big part of what progress looks like for us going through this season, and just making sure our players are getting better. And I don't think it's just the rookies, it's also the veteran players too. Coming from the background that I have and seeing it done in a couple different places, everyone can get better, the coach included. But rookies and veterans, there's still room to grow. And so development's going to be a big part of our process. And then just not skipping steps. I talked to the guys today about we do have a lot of players returning, and we've made some deals to get some new guys on the team, but that doesn't guarantee you more victories. You can't control a lot of those outcomes. What we have to be focused on is the process and controlling our actions on a daily basis and our daily habits.
Charles, you worked for two organizations that won championships. What have you learned from those organizations that you think you can incorporate here to take the Hornets to another level?
Yeah, not getting bored with the process, falling in love with the everyday grind, and embracing, I think, some of the challenges that an NBA season bring about. A lot of people will face some of the adversity that comes with injuries or, not shooting the ball well, and they'll take the easy route out and, come up with excuses. And I think so far, we've touched on it before with all the change that's gone on here, we are resilient. We're going to figure it out. And we're just going to have the mindset of we're not going to make excuses. We're just going to continue to make progress, whether it's small wins, big wins. We will take any win, any step that we can take in the right direction.
Charles, you talked about unleashing Mark kind of in his shot blocking aspect. What's that look like? What's the steps for that? And then secondly, obviously I know he's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks, but is there a hope or a plan to get him in a preseason game before getting regular season? Is that still to be determined?
Yeah, to unleash him is, I think, a mindset. And a lot of the mindset has to come from Mark and watching film with Mark. And one of the things that we talked about in September as we were going through workouts and seeing him in some 5-on-5 competition was just doing your work early, having the instincts and anticipation of seeing the play a little bit earlier. And, I've been around some other great bigs that I think have helped protect the paint and showing him some of those clips. And, he's going to be different than some of those other guys, but I do think that it's a great reference point. And he took to that. And as a student of the game, I think he just wants to continue to watch film. And so just unleashing him to understand, you see the ball driven to the basket, we have to protect the paint as a team. And it's going to start with our guy on ball, but then after that, understanding and having trust amongst each other that Mark will be there, that Nick will be there. That is the key.
Charles, when you look around the league, it almost feels like the talent's at an all-time high. But with that being said, you have one of the best backcourts in the NBA. How excited are you to coach them? And is any part of your coaching trying to push the pace with this young team that you have?
Yeah, you hit on a great word of pace and also young talent. And so those two things, I think, are really important to our offense. Having great pace at the beginning of a possession to make sure that we're getting it into an attack zone early in the clock and not allowing the defense to relax or adjust. And maybe we're creating some advantages early in the clock to then be able to manipulate as we keep going in a possession. Those two that you that you reference in terms of Melo and Brandon have had great off seasons. And so I think even within our running habits, trying to show them how they can work off of each other and how they affect each other early in a possession is really important. How do we get some more kick aheads, or how do we get them doing some dribble actions to one another early in some possessions? So the pace and the talent is going to be great, but a lot of that pace can start if we're getting stops on the defensive end, and we don't have to keep taking the ball out of the basket.
Charles, obviously there's a big difference when LaMelo's been on the floor and hasn't been on the floor here. In trying to keep him on the floor, is there anything the coaching staff, the medical staff can do more? I know he was wearing ankle braces at the last summer. I don't think he wore them during the regular season. But is there anything you've talked to him about, or is there anything you guys can do to kind of help prevent any of those injuries?
Yeah, so I think injuries are part of the game, unfortunately, in all sports. And what we can do and what we can control is a lot of the preparation that we put into it beforehand. And this offseason, I think he's shown a real commitment to coming in and being consistent and doing his ankle rehabilitation stuff and doing band work to address certain areas that he might have limitations in that he's trying to improve upon. So there's been some really good conversations, and I think there's been a really good plan put in place by our performance staff and front office and coaching staff. And I think to start the year, the plan is for him to try to wear the braces as much as possible to put him in the best position to have success. And, as we continue to go through the season, we'll evaluate how that's, helping, hurting, or things are staying status quo.
Charles, you've spent a full summer around all of your guys now. So in terms of intangibles, what is one thing you think this team is really strong in?
We're strong in a lot of things. But I think what I'm going to say is resilience. Again, there's been a ton of change. I think a lot of it's been really exciting, but they are so resilient. They are so focused on what they can control. And so no matter what that is, there's a love for the game. There's a love for competition. And so I see our team as somebody that's going to embrace, again, the challenges that come with an NBA season or an NBA game. And we've addressed that we have to continue to mature when things aren't going our way. And so I've just seen a great focus from our team in that regard. And we've gone through some injuries over the past few years, and we've been snake bitten, but we're not letting that stop us. And there's still a great energy to this group about coming into work every day, and they understand the challenges ahead of us.
Charles, to piggyback off of that, is there any intangible that you see early on in this team doesn't necessarily possess or needs to be a bit strengthened in this offseason?
I just think that our overall commitment to defense could be better. And, the numbers have laid out a picture of what we have been. And now we have to be able to put in the work and have the actions to follow to change that. I do think that this is a very competitive, resilient team. We just have to be able to do it not just for a quarter or for a minute or for a week. It's just a level of consistency that we need to build.
To that point, the summer league campaign that you guys had was defined by high energy, tough-nosed defense. Will that messaging be the same for the senior Hornets when the season starts? And how hard is it to get that kind of messaging, to get that play from guys who are veterans, have been in the league for a long time?
Yeah, that'll definitely be the message. As you've probably heard me say, consistency is key with everything. And so my message is consistent. And so we started it in Summer League, and it's going to continue. It was even funny to talk to some of the guys in the offseason, and they said, man, I saw some of the videos and the energy, and I heard the first practice was just a lot of defense. I'm training all offseason to make sure I'm ready for that first just all defensive practice that we have. So they know what it's going to take. And everyone talks about they want to win in this league. And nobody's really willing to put in the work that it's going to take to win. And so I don't think it's going to be hard to get the message across to these guys that if you want to win, which we don't control those outcomes, but we can put ourselves in the best position to win if we do these things at a high competitive level. They've heard that message, and I think they're really bought in on it.
Charles, Jeff talked a little bit about Brandon Miller's experience with the Team USA Select team. Will you talk about what that can do for him going into his second year in the league?
Yeah, I think it helps with your confidence overall. I think Brandon's already a really confident kid, and he's shown last year as the reigning Rookie of the Year what he's capable of doing. And now we just have to be able to go from a guy on the scouting report to like the guy on the scouting report, and people are keyed in on you more. So owning your space, and you have to be a little bit more physical as you go up against some of the top players in the NBA. So I think from a physicality standpoint, he got tested. And it was good for him to see what that looks like on both ends of the court. So I overall think that the way that they run Team USA is just really well run. And for him to get that exposure and experience is going to be huge for his growth and his confidence as he comes into this year.
Sorry about that. Coach, earlier in response to a question about LaMelo, you mentioned the difference between joy and competitive joy. Just curious to get your perspective on when you recognize the importance of the distinction and your role in teaching that as a coach.
Yeah, I just think that with all the championship caliber teams that I've been around, we work so hard and we have such high expectations on ourselves as competitors that we lose the joy piece. And then some guys start with the joy piece and lack more of the consistent competitiveness, like that nasty, that tough, that gritty, the multiple efforts of what it takes to do that. And so I think it's my job as the head coach and our coaching staff to remind these guys that we need to play really hard. We need to be able to make the multiple efforts that it takes to defend and the multiple efforts that it even takes offensively to be able to score in this league. Winning's not easy, and if it was, everyone would be doing it. And so the competitive pieces that go into it, we need to continue to remind them of it. But as much as we are going to compete, we also want to have some joy. Like at the end of the day, we get to play basketball. We get to play a game that we love and that we're passionate about. And so just trying to blend the two is a hallmark to me, or like the perfect balance of what you need to hopefully build sustainable success.